The movie begins with the new hero Captain Marvel, who we learned in the mid-credit scene of her solo film, found the remaining heroes just when things were looking hopeless. When Endgame opens, we are with Tony Stark, who is drifting in the Benatar with Nebula after an unsuccessful stand against Thanos. They have been there for 22 days and are about to run out of air. Even Tony's big brain can't figure out a way to avoid the inevitable. This time, he is preparing to drift off when a bright light finds them, and it's not Tinkerbell, it's Captain Marvel. She flies the broken ship back to Earth, rescuing an emaciated but still alive Tony and his blue companion at Avengers headquarters. It's clear that the rest of the remaining team is still licking their wounds from the failure, but there is a glimmer of hope. Nebula knows that Thanos plans to retire after he carried out his grand plan, so the Avengers travel there to find a broken Thanos in casual wear. For some reason, he is still sporting the Infinity Gauntlet, but the stones that power it are nowhere to be found because he destroyed it. The Avengers are incredulous, as their whole plan depended on getting those stones. Thor uses Stormbreaker to separate Thanos from his head, but it's too little too late. It looks like everyone who is gone is going to stay that way. Then we catch up with the Avengers again 5 years later. Steve Rogers is running a support group to help people move on from the vanishing, and Natasha has become the administrator of the Avengers. One person who hasn't been around for a while is Ant-Man himself, Scott Lang. Scott happened to enter the quantum realm just seconds before the decimation with Hope Van Dyne and her parents. They were dusted, and there was no way to pull him out. It was assumed that he was one of the vanished. Then, a rat, the true hero of the movie, walks over just the right button in his quantum realm-equipped van, and boom, Scott Lang emerges and realizes something had gone terribly wrong in his absence. After reuniting with his daughter, Scott goes to Avengers HQ to tell Cap and Natasha about an idea. It has been 5 years since he left Earth, but for him, it has felt like 5 hours. Could the time discrepancy mean that the team could use the quantum realm to time travel and set things right? They go to visit the man who is most likely to figure it out, Tony Stark. In the past 5 years, though, Tony's life has changed. Instead of saving the world as Iron Man, he is busy being a father to his young daughter Morgan. Scott, Cap, and Natasha explain their epiphany, but Tony wants nothing to do with it. So the group goes to see Bruce Banner, who has also changed. Bruce figured out how to merge his intellect with the brawn of his alter ego, the Hulk. Now, as Professor Hulk, he can smash and do science. Time travel is beyond his expertise, but he agrees to give it a shot. Meanwhile, Tony can't let the time travel idea go. He quickly figures the whole thing out. He considers backing off because he doesn't want to lose the life he has found with his daughter and Pepper, but Pepper encourages him. He arrives at the Avengers compound in the nick of time. Hulk wasn't exactly making it work, but Tony soon figures out the tech and they set out to recruit the remaining Avengers. Hulk and Rocket Raccoon go to pick up Thor in New Asgard, but when they find him, he's not exactly looking like himself. In his depression, Thor has lost himself in beer and video games, and he still can't hear the name Thanos without getting upset. Thor is reluctant, but they convince him to help. Meanwhile, Natasha goes to pick up Clint Barton. After losing his whole family in the decimation, Clint has gone from the family-friendly Hawkeye to the rated Ronin. And there's not a bad guy he hasn't hacked and slashed since. However, Clint and Natasha are besties, and a few bodies don't change that. As far as she's concerned, with everyone on board, the next step is to figure out how to execute their plan. The plan is for the team to use time travel to retrieve the Infinity Stones in the past before Thanos can get his grubby purple mitts on them. A time heist, if you will. They work out when and where they should go for the best chance of finding each stone. Then, they split up and journey to their respective destinations. Right now, you might be wondering, wait, if they get the Infinity Stones in the past, wouldn't that prevent Thanos from gathering them and snapping away half of life in the first place? You would think so, but it turns out time travel in Endgame doesn't work like time travel in Back to the Future. You can't change your past for complicated reasons that would require a separate video to explain the mission. Anyway, the gang takes off to 4 places from past MCU movies. The Hulk, Ant-Man, Captain America, and Tony head to New York City and during the big battle in the first Avengers movie. Hulk goes to retrieve the Time Stone while the rest go after the Space and Mind Stones. Fortunately, Cap and Tony know what happened the first time around, so they execute their piece of the time heist with that knowledge in mind. Tony and Scott give past Tony a mild cardiac episode to get the Space Stone. Everything goes according to plan until future Tony gets clobbered by an angry past Hulk. Well, He ends up getting the stones and uses them to escape custody. At first, Cap has an easier time. He retrieves the Mind Stone and Loki's scepter by tricking Jasper Sitwell into believing he's a Hydra agent. Of course, nothing's that easy. Right Cap is stopped by his younger self and a fight breaks out. Future Cap wins by telling himself a tantalizing secret. Bucky's alive. Meanwhile, Hulk is looking for Doctor Strange, but he's years too early. The Ancient One is the Time Stone's current guardian, and she doesn't want to give it up. After a lot of discussion, Hulk asks the Ancient One why Strange gave up the stone. That changes her perspective, and soon the Time Stone is in Hulk's possession. Thor and Rocket head to Asgard to retrieve the Ether, also known as the Reality Stone, from an ether-infected Jane Foster. The plan is for future Thor to distract Jane while Rocket uses a device to extract the stone. However, Thor gets caught up in a conversation with his mother Frigga and doesn't help Rocket. Frigga sets him straight and renews his sense of purpose. Back on Earth, Cap and Tony head further back in time to try again for the Soul Stone. They go to a SHIELD base in New Jersey, and Cap gets to see Peggy Carter, and Tony resolve some of his daddy issues through a conversation with his father. They successfully retrieve the stone. The remaining Avengers make the biggest trips. Natasha and Clint go for the Soul Stone on the planet Vormir, and Rhodey and Nebula head to Morag for the Power Stone. Nebula and Rhodey knock out Peter Quill, and Nebula uses her arm to free the stone. However, her wires get crossed with her 2014 self, resulting in her capture by a younger Thanos. Meanwhile, Natasha and Clint encounter Red Skull, who tells them that to get the Soul Stone, they must sacrifice the thing they love. Since they love each other, one of them must die. They debate and fight, but ultimately Natasha sacrifices herself. The original Avengers mourn her loss, but they know she would have wanted them to finish their plan. Tony builds a new Infinity Gauntlet so that the group has their very own sparkly, stone-encrusted glove. Thor volunteers to wield it, but given his recent track record, the others don't have much faith in him. Hulk steps up, as his transformation into the Professor gives him the best chance of surviving the superpowered stones. He successfully slips on the glove, and despite a lot of screaming, manages to execute the snap. For a few seconds, everything is peaceful and it looks like the plan was a success. However, the gang soon has bigger problems when the evil 2014 Nebula, posing as her future self, infiltrates Avengers HQ and opens a time portal for Thanos. Thanos arrives and demolishes the compound, leaving Clint holding the Infinity Gauntlet while Rocket, Hulk, and Rhodey are trapped in the flooding basement. Ant-Man saves them, while Clint plays keep away with Thanos' goons. When Nebula appears, Clint gives her the gauntlet, only to quickly realize she's not the Nebula he knows. Fortunately, 2023, Nebula has convinced Gamora to help them stop their father, so before past Nebula can escape with it, future Nebula takes down her younger self and retrieves the gauntlet. Meanwhile, Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man are fighting Thanos alone, and the debris. Cap even manages to pick up Thor's hammer and give Thanos a mighty blow, but Thanos holds his own and calls in his troops. Cap is left standing alone against them, and is not looking good. Then, all of the heroes who were snapped back into existence, and even some who were there all along, start to appear, joining the fight. Doctor Strange starts portaling in everyone willing to fight, and soon Captain America is surrounded on all sides by superheroes. Seeing the scales tipping in their favor, Cap utters the two words fans have been longing to hear for years: Avengers assemble. With that, the battle is on. Thanos almost gets the new Infinity Gauntlet, but luckily Tony thought ahead and built another gauntlet into his Iron Man armor. He glances over at Doctor Strange, who gestures that this is their one chance. With determination, Tony repeats the declaration he made in 2008. I am Iron Man. He snaps his fingers. Thanos and his minions turn to dust. However, even one Infinity Stone is too much for an average human to handle, and Tony Stark, having used all 6 stones, dies. Pepper Potts says her final goodbye, wrapping up Tony's story and acknowledging his role in starting the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Tony's journey is complete, transforming from a selfish arms dealer to a self-sacrificing hero. He is given a hero's funeral. Thor, having learned to embrace his true self, appoints Valkyrie as the new Queen of Asgard and joins the Guardians of the Galaxy for future intergalactic adventures. Meanwhile, Steve Rogers chooses to return the 6 Infinity Stones to their original times and stays in the past with Peggy Carter. In 2023, an old Steve reappears and passes on his shield to Sam Wilson, declaring him the new Captain America. The movie ends with a bittersweet conclusion, leaving some loose ends for future exploration in the MCU. Thor survives the events of Endgame, potentially leading to another standalone movie or appearing in Guardians of the Galaxy Vol. 3. Peter Quill is searching for Gamora from 2014, and it remains unknown if he will find her. Additionally, the Loki who escaped with the Space Stone is still at large, possibly to be addressed in his upcoming series on Disney+. With Clint Barton and Peter Parker back to their normal lives, the question remains about how their stories will continue. Overall, Avengers Endgame provides a satisfying ending while leaving room for future MCU stories. Feel free to share your favorite part of the movie and your thoughts on any confusing plot points in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this content, consider subscribing to the Movieverse for more.